What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me, as always, is Daniel Terry. We're recording this on a day that is not normal for us, so this is exciting.
Yeah,
it feels new. It's almost like being with a new partner.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much exactly like that. I couldn't think of really any other way to describe it. No, I mean, we're doing the thing that we normally do. We're just doing it incredibly late at night, and that has its perks, I guess. Very deep conversations. We just had a amazing conversation about Fleetwood Mac and the future of rock, and all that stuff that you guys do not get to hear. So
no. This episode's guest is, we're returning Spencer from Periphery to talk about his quote-unquote solo project, King Mothership, with his bandmate Tai Wright, who plays bass. Maybe you remember him from his time in Slaves. We kind of hit at that a little bit in the beginning of the chat. This was kind of fun. Dan, more so me, I was pretty drunk when we did this.
I mean, I was getting there, that's for sure. But yeah, this was a conversation that we had, for sure. I'm not even being vague. It's just John and I were very on brand during this one.
Yeah, this was right before my wife, one of our good friends, and another friend of mine went to Atlanta. So we were just kind of in pre-celebration mode. I cut it out of the conversation of what was recording, but basically Dan saw me get shots fed to me, which kind of is a great representation of why at times I'm trying to force jokes in this.
Yeah.
I edited this to be a little bit more concise and to the point. I left a couple of my bad joke ideas in just because it led to some funny tangents and so forth, but this is a lot of fun. I think this is one of those quintessential, like, when you think of kind of what we are, what we like to do, this is it. Like, this is us talking with a narrative in mind, which is about the new King Mothership record, which at the time hadn't been out. People hadn't heard it, and we were one of the few press outlets that had kind of gotten to hear it, and we got to talk to Ty and Spencer, and just had a fucking good time talking to them, and I really enjoyed this, and I also really enjoyed the fact that Dan was kind of drinking, like Ty and Spencer were drinking, so like, it was a late night conversation, just like the four of us having a good fucking time, and I like these when we all when it's more loose, because nothing is more lame kind of than when you do some of these and it's a little bit pretentious, like, here's the record, here's what we're talking about, yeah, here's the things we did, and all that kind of shit, and it's kind of loose. Like, we're getting ready to drop an episode with Michael from Dark Tranquility.
Oh, yeah.
And because of the time difference, like, literally, I'm on my lunch break, and he's like, well, I have a beer, cheers. And I'm like, fuck, I wish I could have a beer with you and do this.
And he's like, well, one day when you grow up, you'll become Michael from Dark Tranquility, and you can have a beer anytime you want.
Absolutely. But this was one of those where Dan, myself, Spencer, Ty, we all had some beers, and we just chatted about the new King Mothership record, which, like I said, is out now. And if you haven't heard it, I strongly recommend you go check it out. It is a very adventurous solo record. Even though talking to Ty and Spencer, you don't get the vibe that it is a solo record. You get the vibe that it is a collaborative record amongst a bunch of musicians, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Some great poop talk on there too. But yeah, it was a very interesting record. I remember you kind of being like, hey, before the chat tonight, maybe you should listen to this a couple times. And I was like, all right. And I really went into it not knowing what to expect at all. And actually kind of ended up enjoying myself more than I thought that I would. Because, I kind of expected it to be kind of more like Periphery. And it could not have been more different. So that's how you scratch those creative itches whenever they don't fit into like your main gig.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those where, sometimes we talk to some band people and this is the quote unquote side project or a solo project or whatever. It's basically not the main entity that they're known for. And when you listen to it, you're kind of like, maybe you went a little too, way out and we're too adventurous for what we were expecting. Sometimes you come into the thing where it's like, I don't hear a lot of difference between this and the main thing you're known for. And I'm very happy to say that this doesn't sound like anything that you hear in Periphery, and I really don't think it sounds like a whole lot in Nick Mystery either, which is Spencer's other band. And I think that's kind of very commendable in this day and age where, like, you see so many people trying to do so many things that are not their main thing, and then you just go, yeah, but this isn't good either, so, like, I don't know why you put this out, or there's nothing interesting about this. And if I can't speak for Dan, but I feel like when you listen to this record, it's a concept record, so like that's kind of keeping your interest and kind of keeping you focused on a lot of what are you hearing, what are the lyrics, what are the audio visual ideas that they're kind of throwing at you that make you think of things visually. But it's just really adventurous, and it's a breath of fresh air. Like I said, like, you know, and we talk about this in the chat too, but it's like this would have been so easy for Spencer to just put out some kind of progressive rock thing, like a progressive rock opera, and basically been like, yeah, this is going to be for the fans of Periphery. It's not too far out of the wheelhouse of what we do, and we're catering to those fans. But I think the fact that it doesn't sound like anything like that, I think is really good, and it's really adventurous, because I can see some Periphery fans going like, it's not technical enough, I don't like it.
Yeah, even though it kind of is in its own way, it's a different kind of technical. But I think it's really something you can't go into with any preconceived notions. It's not safe at all for them, you know, to put out a record like this. And you know, as the kind of metalhead person that is usually like, yeah, you guys really took a real big left turn here. They definitely took a big left turn, but it wasn't into a bad part of town.
No, I'm definitely excited to see where this goes. If there will be more King Mothership, especially now that there is, not saying there wasn't a solidified band throughout the whole process, but with the fact that this basically started with music that sat on Spencer's old laptop and then became what you hear, I am interested to hear what would happen if there's more of a collaborative effort as a full band now of what King Mothership is. And that's kind of the interesting thing about this band too, is it's Spencer's solo record, but it also has band members, you know, Matt on drums, Ty on bass, and all that kind of stuff. And it just makes me wonder, like, what will we get from the next record? Will we see an even more adventurous record, because everyone kind of knows what this band is and what it's supposed to be? And that's always interesting. It almost, to me, and I know, like, this is definitely low-hanging fruit as far as a comparison, but this almost feels like Mr. Bungle to me. Like, this feels like it could be a Mr. Bungle kind of band where it's like, it is what it is, but what it is can be absolutely anything that they want it to be. And that's pretty fucking exciting to me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a project and you just make it into your own personal sandbox, you know what I mean? That's pretty much what they've done here, unless the next record sounds just like this one. In which case, then it's like, okay, now we have rules established. I think if a second record does sound the same, though, I think it kind of would be more of a detriment in the sense of, like, you know, we did this to get away from rules, so we probably don't want to establish, like, rules and create expectations. You know, because a second record's not going to sound as good as the first if it's in the same kind of in the same vein, which is something I've come to find from doing my other podcast.
I think that's the interesting thing about comparing him to Mr. Bungle is, like, you look at the first Mr. Bungle record, which I'm blanking on the name of that record, but I know California sounded nothing like that first record. It sounded completely unto its own, and it remains to be seen how the next Mr. Bungle project will be now that it is made up of completely different people. But I think that's one of the fun comparisons I can relate it to. And obviously with the Mike Patton thing and Spencer being like, you know, Mike Patton was kind of a big inspiration vocally for me. Mr. Bungle is one of the bigger inspirations I can think of for what, you know, King Mothership can be, is, and maybe will be in the future, is just very unprecedented as far as what it'll be. And as a music fan of all kinds of things, that has me pretty excited, personally.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. I'll keep my eyes open. But yeah, but this is a fun chat too. I feel like we answered a lot of questions, or we had a lot of questions. Did we ask any questions during? Yeah, I'm blanking a little bit on it. But yeah, I think that I think this is gonna be cool. It'll be interesting to see kind of how it's received. I could probably just like Google right now like how people are receiving it. But I don't want to spoil the surprise for anybody. So yeah, let's get into this thing.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you on the other side of this.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Sorry, just chugging down a shitty tasting protein shake right now.
Well,
Nice.
I guess I don't even want to tell you what I have in front of me that I'll be chugging down.
Yeah, we were gonna run to the store to grab some beers before this, but we just didn't have time.
I just did the same. I grabbed some beef jerky. I mean, this is from my fridge, but I have a nice blueberry pancake stout, milkshake stout. I have in this guy, my Ecto Slimer Green guy, I have a 12-year Johnny Walker and some Coke.
Nice.
And then my wife, because we're going to Atlanta in like 2 days, so we're pre-celebrating for our trip. I have a like Johnny Vegas type shot in this thing. Atlanta's tight. I'm so looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you guys. Spencer, if you remember, you guys, we did a chat in Detroit on that Periphery Dance Gavin Dance tour, and you left me on your bus so you guys could go do a Pokemon run, and I was like...
You remember that I cut it short because there was a Legendary down the street, and my whole band was going to get it. I was like, dude, I gotta go. Felt bad, but it was worth it.
But so what's funny is I have so many friends who tour, and like I was texting like some of my friends, and I'm like, isn't there like a generic code on this bus so I could just like get off the bus and lock it for them? And they're like, no one got back to me. And then as soon as I was done, you guys came back and locked the bus or whatever. They're like, yeah, if you're ever on this bus or you're ever on a bus like this is the generic code. It locks the bus behind you. And I was like, good to know, because I felt so fucking awkward being on your bus where I was like, there's literally nobody. There's a dollar bill crumpled in like the seat where Mark was sitting, and like I almost just want to like put it on a table so like he doesn't lose it, but like I feel like that's awkward.
Yeah, I can't remember, dude. It's been so long since I've been on a bus already, since nobody's touring this year. I can't remember what that code is.
It was so funny, like so many of my touring friends were like, I would never let that happen. Like, you would be off that bus as soon as that interview was over. And I was like, I just sat there like a good boy, and I was like, are you guys done with your Pokemon? Can I leave now?
I don't have anything of value on the bus, especially during the day. Like, there's sweaty towels from showering and like dirty laundry and shit. Like, it's not like we keep like a bunch of money on there or anything. So
yeah, I looked. I didn't find anything. And it is Tai, correct? That's how you pronounce your name?
It is. Oh yeah, and we wanted to set the record straight right off the bat. Tai used to be in Vices, but because he's playing
Slaves.
Or sorry, yeah, no.
That was like Slaves, I think.
Yeah, sorry. No, he actually has a side project right now called Vices, which is why I said that. But he was in Slaves, but he drummed for it. But everybody thinks he was the bass player just because he's playing bass for
This band.
King Mothership. But he was actually the drummer of Slave.
Well, yeah, you have to pick an instrument. That's the only instrument that you can ever play for the rest of your life. That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
We have the pleasure of talking to Spencer and Tai of King Mothership, whose record doesn't come out as of when we're recording this for a month and a half, I believe. We're from the release date.
October 2nd. Yeah, 2nd or 3rd. I can never remember. It's one of the two.
Whatever the Friday is, I'm sure that's when it's coming out, because that's the weird thing now. We put records out on Friday, so you can party and have fun with it.
That still feels weird to me. Like, I always remember it coming out on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's
like
Tuesday.
Yes!
Yeah.
No, it's Fridays. Put on the
How long?
party
It's
anthem.
been Friday for years now, but it still feels like it just changed to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're like in your mid-30s like we are, and you're like, okay, so for the last 20 years, records came out on Fridays. Even if it's been 5 years, you're still like, that's still fucking weird that records come out on Fridays. It will always be Tuesdays to me.
New release Tuesday, Best Buy. You can get any CD you want for $7.99.
Dude, that's right. I went there every week to get the new records.
Target.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Kind of getting right into the record, something I'm going to say I feel a lot more comfortable talking to you, Spencer, on this one because it's not Periphery and you don't have fans who are so diehard and know everything about you and this band that I feel like, okay, for once I'm a little bit ahead of the curve and people can't talk shit about me for not asking this or this question. So this is going to be a lot more fun and loose on my end. But
yeah, because only we've heard it.
Yes.
You know?
That's true, yeah. Yeah, Periphery fans are very diehard. They will go for the throat if you're wrong about anything. Yeah.
I will say, thankfully, everybody has been relatively nice about our chat and saying, like, it's great to hear other questions that we don't hear. And I'm like, thank God, because I was, like, ready to shit my pants the whole time, being like, everyone's going to hate this. But all that aside, something that really stood out to me about this, and you know, in our past chat, kind of talking about Nick Mystery, is I feel like there's kind of some Danny Elfman vibes going on with some of the theatrical elements on this record. And I know while this is kind of a concept record, I wanted to know, are you guys planning on making, and this might be a weird reference, like a Moonwalker or a mini movie kind of to marry the audio and the narrative to a visual medium at all? Like, because this feels like a very visual, audio-visual medium to me. Like, it feels like it needs to have an accompaniment.
I mean, that would be the dream, obviously. Like, I think there's a really cool story to be told within this whole thing that could be fleshed out if we did something like that. But it's obviously, you know, it's a money thing. I mean, if you want to give me some investors, dude, I'll do it.
I believe 3 Dot is your investors, correct?
Yeah, not for stuff like that. For the music part, for sure. But
I want stop motion.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna get really expensive with stop motion.
Peter Gabriel Sledgehammer video.
Yeah, exactly.
Style like that.
I mean, after hearing it, it plays almost like a Broadway musical in a certain way.
Absolutely.
So
Telling people it's like a weird rock opera. It's like my rock opera that I'm.
So Dee Snider's going to be the lead in this?
Dee Snider? Is that what you said?
Yes, absolutely.
Holy shit! No,
that's actually not bad.
I'm sorry, David Hasselhoff. He was the replacement for Dee Snider back in the day on the Jekyll and Hyde thing, I believe.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously, yeah, him for sure.
He's the guy.
But yeah,
it'd be huge in Germany. They love Hasselhoff in Germany.
Oh, that's his country.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you were talking about Danny Elfman, huge inspiration on me. Like ever since I've been a kid. Like I've always just kind of liked that, especially like the Nightmare Before Christmas style stuff that he did. It has this like evil but also like heartwarming sound at the same time. You know, that's definitely been a huge inspiration for me.
I'm genuinely now thinking about Dracula's Lament from Forgetting Sarah Martin. Die. And just like, oh god, this would be amazing to do it like that. Oh my god, so good.
I think it's hard to like listen to this record and not think of it in a broader sense, whether you're thinking like a play, a musical, whatever, because like I feel like it is split into almost into thirds, almost like a play, like where it's like here's your first act, your second act, your third act, and some of the music in it kind of accentuates like here's kind of a, and I don't want to call it a intermission kind of piece, but it's like the thing that almost like now here's kind of where we are in the story, and it kind of, you know, is filling you in on what's been happening, and I feel like for a solo record, especially your first, it's just so wild to have you go so adventurous with this, and knowing that a lot of this is 9 years old at this point, and that you were able to cobble together this very progressive, very story-based idea for your first solo record. And it's funny to me to think that, as in the press release that you said, like, it sat on my shitty MacBook, and I'm like, well, if this is what's sitting on your shitty MacBook, like, what do you have sitting on, like, your nice iPhone, or maybe a better MacBook, like, at this point?
There's a lot of shit we're tossing around. We're already working on album 2. Yeah. We're like 3 songs deep into album 2 right now for King Mothership, and it's definitely it feels more like a band now because you know, me and Ty, and then like obviously Matt doesn't live here in Vegas with us, but we're sending him ideas as we finish them, and you know, he's already getting ready for drums and stuff like that. He's going to have everything ready ahead of time before we even finish writing the record. So it's a lot more cohesive, and yeah, there's a lot of ideas sitting on my new computer. I got rid of that shitty about 6 months ago and never looked back.
What has the reaction been to the single that was dropped? Just considering what your built-in fan base would would be expecting from you versus what this is. I mean, obviously, I think anybody with a brain realizes that it was always supposed to be a big left turn, but what has been the reaction as far as people responding to the song and being stoked about the record coming out?
It's been pretty overwhelmingly positive. This song was actually put out in a demo form, like on an old SoundCloud page I used to have, like 8 years ago or so. So there's a lot of those diehard Periphery fans that have been around with us since the beginning that have heard this song, in its earlier rendition. And dude, Periphery fans are so funny. Like, that demo sounded so shitty, but there's still like comment here. There's always going to be that odd comment from that one like super diehard fan that like has listened to Misha since 2005 on MySpace, who's like, "Oh, I liked the original version better."
Right.
Like it sounded so shitty.
It's like Reaper drums and shit. It was like dumb.
Yeah. And this is like Halpern just raping the drum kit, just like going for it on it, and it sounds massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all about the nuance, man.
Oh, yeah, it must be. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, those kind of comments don't even make me mad. I start laughing. I just start laughing hysterically because I'm like, clearly it didn't sound better.
Well, I'm totally that guy, but like I've heard both versions, and I definitely prefer the the modern version, just to save my ears. I bought brand new headphones, and so when I was listening to the record today, I actually got to like really appreciate it in a way that I could not with some of those demos, because I remember hearing some of that stuff whenever it first, whenever you kind of posting stuff here and there, but like. It was shocking to me what it all basically ended up turning into as far as a full-scale production. And so John's question about like, man, so where's the visual aspect to this isn't necessarily off base, because it almost seems like it's written with that in mind.
Well, maybe I don't know. Like,
I think down the road that could definitely be a possibility.
We just need to get some investors.
Yeah, we just need some money in the till.
I mean, I
got 5 on it, dude.
Especially
I got 3 on it.
I figured you would have 3 on it, if anything. Yeah. There was always a really cool thing with like I brought it up in our Q&A video, but the Deer Hunter had this kind of a similar, which is obviously a huge inspiration of ours as well. They had a similar idea about doing it with the axe and doing like a 7-act play and like a book written for it. Like that would be like a visualized like coffee table book thing is something I thought would be really cool.
Does it turn into a coffee table though? We want to know.
What did you say?
Does it turn into a coffee table? Does the coffee table idea turn into a coffee table?
It's a whole a whole coffee table book that is the coffee table.
A rectangular book that's big enough to be a coffee table. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then
this guy is bonkers.
That's the standard edition, though. Let's talk about the deluxe edition, where it's got a turntable built into the coffee table, and it's like controlled by like just a little remote control. You just hit play, and the whole thing just opens up, and there's a turntable in there, and then like.
Oh, you're talking about the DAW version.
Yeah, the good version. Yeah, the version that only serious fans are going to buy.
How many beers deep are you guys already?
4 maybe. Me and John BS a lot before these, so just saying it's a possibility. We do live in a world that if you release several different variants of anything, people will buy every single variant. So you can price something as much as you want, and people will buy that version as well as all the standard versions.
Something that was kind of interesting to me, and, I know, talking to you, Spencer, previously, talking about Periphery and talking about Nick Mystery, and, I had made the comment at the time about how I don't really hear a lot of Nick Mystery in what you do in Periphery, but, like, I hear some of the elements that the other guys bring in from their other bands. I actually thought, vocally, this was really adventurous, and there's some... Maybe it's my age, maybe it's the fact that I've been listening to a lot of early 90s, mid-90s R&B and so forth in the last, 2 months. But, a song like Gold, I hear a lot of Bobby Brown vibes to me.
Oh, really?
And so it kind of made me wonder, what were some of your vocal influences that inspired you for this release to kind of just explore different sonic textures that you haven't been able to on Periphery stuff? Or even Nick Mystery, for that matter.
Mike Patton's always been a huge influence on me, and this record, probably knowing that now, if you went back and listened to it with that in mind, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's kind of like Faith No More Worship, all over the place.
Because to me, like, I definitely heard that, and there's, like, some songs where you're kind of doing, like, that, like, swing-style vibe on some of the stuff, and, you know, kind of going all over, showcasing your range, but, like, and like I said, Gold was kind of the one where I was like, I get, like, really early, like, Just Leaving New Edition style Bobby Brown vibes, like, where it's, like, really R&B laced, and I feel like that's maybe a part of your voice that maybe you don't use a whole lot in Periphery or anything else, that I was like, this might surprise some people, where they're like, oh, okay, like, dude's got some interesting range that I've not heard before.
And also, like, there's just a lot of nuances that are coming through in my voice in this record, because I mixed the vocals just, like, the loudest thing ever right in your face. And a lot with Periphery, like, there's so many guitars and layers and stuff, and, like, certain nuances in my voice can get lost in the mix, so that probably has something to do with it, too. Like, you're hearing every tiny little nuance of my performance, like, right at the front of the recording.
By chance, did I actually catch that you were carrying over some of the melodies from, and forgive me because I had most of this in my pocket so I couldn't see the song titles, the first song that starts off the record, I think it's Hope.
Yep.
I feel like there was some vocal melodies and even musical melodies that were carried throughout the rest of the record all the way to the very ending track. Am I correct in that you're kind of carrying themes throughout the record on those?
There's a lot of different themes that you hear early on in the record, and some of them were written for later in the record, and I brought them back to earlier. Like Hope, that the main line of that song, I took that from the chorus of Ego 101, which is like right in the middle of the record, and you know, kind of finagled it to work within the key of that song, and just to give like a nod to that. So it's like it happens right at the beginning of the record, and then when you're about halfway through it, you hear it again, but in a totally different context. There's a lot of that going on throughout the record, a lot of little Easter eggs like that I feel like, you know, people may not pick up on their first time, but like the more and more they listen to it, they'll pick up on stuff like that.
So this is gonna sound like a pretentious question, and I don't mean it to, but what came first, the story or the music?
The music for sure. It was kind of just like a Frankenstein thing we put together. Like, even when I decided, you know, I have enough music to make a record, it was like it still felt kind of disconnected, and I had to, you know, change lyrics here and there to fit parts of the story, how I wanted them to flow, and even write new pieces of music. Like, I think I wrote like 2 or 3 extra songs after we decided to actually finish the record, just to piece the story together and make it feel cohesive.
Gotcha. So, and this is one hell of a story. It starts off innocent enough. Dude is wants to just get, you know, wants to be somebody, right? And then we move into darker territory with him wanting to, you know, basically end up making a deal with the devil in order to become a rock star. Becomes a rock star, and then the thing that I was the most shocked about, and not really shocked because, you know, I listen to Cannibal Corpse, but you know, suddenly bodies start dropping, but the music stays happy, and there's this really fun disjointed quality to it. And so I guess my question out of all of those statements that I just made, it would be like, you know, I guess what was your inspiration for wanting to write a story like this, to give it a darker kind of a darker twist, and maybe play off of people's emotions, because the songs make me feel one way, but when I listen to the lyrics, I feel a completely different way. Totally.
And one movie that's a musical that I always loved that was definitely an inspiration was like Sweeney Todd. Like there are moments where it's like one of the most gory movies ever, but there are parts of it where it's like, dude, what you're seeing right now in the music does not line up. Yeah. And I kind of wanted to do that with the music, you know, make it very playful, and like if you didn't know what was happening, like it could very easily slide by you what's actually going on in the story.
Yeah.
I have a note that basically, sorry Dan, I have a note that basically is like, this might be the most fucked up Danny Elfman Tim Burton film I've never seen ever.
Yeah, that's sick. Awesome. Wow.
Was Sweeney Todd Tim Burton?
It was.
Okay,
it definitely was.
Yeah, obviously, because Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter were in it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Danny Elfman composed a lot of it.
Did he compose? I wasn't sure if he actually composed a lot of the music to that.
I think pretty much that's like, if you see Tim Burton, you're going to see Danny Elfman. Almost like at this point now, if you see what's his name? Guy who did Pulp Fiction, Tarantino. If you see Tarantino, you know like Riz is probably going to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool when people have teams like that and they like always bring the same kind of team in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, for as far as following this story for the listener, is this just one of those, like, we'll just have lyrics to read along with, or will there be, like, any sort of, like, additional exposition on the storyline? Because the storyline is really what caught me the most. Even though, I mean, obviously I like the music, but it's one of those things where, you know, I feel like it all works together, like, really well as a single package. So, like, will there be any exposition once it's released to kind of fill in, you know, any sort of like any sort of like time lapses, gaps, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's something that I've definitely thought about doing, whether it's like, you know, recording kind of like an interview style explanation of it, or, you know, like, or if we can put together some sort of media that tells more of the story and bridges gaps between, you know, maybe one point in the story, there's like months in between certain parts, you know, and flesh out the story. And it just depends, man. Like, I honestly don't know how people are going to accept this whole thing once it's out, and we're kind of just waiting to see before we, like, put all of our eggs into it, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. There's some people might take it straight up at face value. I'm kind of hoping they'll want to dive deeper, though, which would then make us want to dive deeper.
Yeah, it's really
create products for, you know, or create content or whatever for people to consume.
Yeah,
that way.
It's really up to, you know, the listeners how everything's going to go. Like, if it takes off, maybe we'll end up playing live and touring, you know, or there will be vinyl or, you know, whatever. We're just kind of going to go with just roll with the punches on it and see where it takes us.
Well, and I got to say, I mean, when you're listening to it just like fresh, like I did, you know, earlier this week, just taking it all in, you know, there is definitely a quality of, like, you can definitely tell that there's more going on than just like a song, like songs and words, you know, in the sense that, like, obviously what's being sung about isn't like the normal point of view from a normal person, you know. So I think that in and of itself is going to draw people in and be like, okay, what is this record actually about?
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope so. I hope people get weird, you know, like those crazy Star Wars fanboys who just create like entire side plots and things that are going on that nobody's ever talked about. Like, nobody's ever written this movie has ever said this, but you're making it up on the internet, so it must be real. Like,
there's a lot of that shit.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready for the fandom.
You know, kind of piggybacking off of Dan's question a little bit, you know, with this being such an adventurous project and knowing that basically for Spencer, it kind of came from ideas that you were trying to just get out during, I think it was Periphery 2, I believe is what the press release kept saying. And thinking about how long ago that was and, you know, all that kind of shit, like, I've just kind of been thinking as I listened to the record, you know, and Dan kind of asked, like, what came first, the music or the lyrical idea, but kind of adversely, are there B-sides to this that maybe, like, were part of a narrative that you wanted to incorporate, but really when you're kind of trying to fit together a 12-song epic that just didn't fit, that you're like, this doesn't really go, this drags too long, it doesn't get where I need it to go, and pulled away? Like, are there B-sides to this, or is everything literally that you kind of worked on back then fully represented in this final product?
No, there were definitely B-sides. There were probably like 3 full songs, maybe not fully with singing, but like structured, like instrumentation wise, like fully fleshed out songs that just weren't the right vibe for the record. And we've toyed around the idea of bringing them back maybe for the second record. But funny enough, we did this, Periphery did this EP called Clear. It was like maybe 6 or 7 months after we did P2. And one of the songs on that's Matt's song, was supposed to be on the record. It was called Feed the Ground. And the riff, like the heavy riff in Feed the Ground, is actually on one of the songs on this Mothership record, because it was like a theme, and it was supposed to come back in that song later in the record. But that's after I like kind of changed the story. Like the story's gone through like 3 different kind of changes and directions I wanted to take it, and that song was just kind of a song where it was like, it's not going to fit the vibe of the story or whatever, so let's just use it for Clear instead. Yeah.
Dan, you got something?
Yeah, so, like, you know, in the creation of this, I know that really, you know, the idea was to make it like not like Periphery, you know, and I think, and I do, you know, there obviously are a few heavy parts kind of thrown in there, and I feel like Cosmic Meltdown makes the most sense as far as being the first 5 minutes long single, but like, were the heavier moments in that, because I didn't get a whole lot of heavy after that. Was that like the ideal lead single because maybe some of the heavier moments on it would kind of pull in the Periphery fans and make them feel a little bit more at home?
I think we just chose it because we thought that it was probably like the catchiest song on the record and the most digestible up front. Like as the first thing you've heard if you've never known about this project or anything going on in it. And it also is kind of gives like an overview of what's going to happen in the story, and like gives that intro to the main character.
It's like a pretty clear synopsis of the whole record as a sound and as like a a concept, like
encapsulates
poppy and catchy, and then really dark and metally, and then kind of like a resolution. It's kind of like the whole record once.
It is, yeah. It definitely has elements from my thing.
Yeah, and it has some piss and shit talk right off the gate. Which I was I was not expecting it, and I actually almost spit my coffee out because I was at work when I heard it for the first time, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is for real. Like I'm in this now. Like I'm fully in now."
Nobody else has ever used the lyrics "shit stain on his ass."
Yeah, that's I don't.
I'll send you in the mail 8 points for originality. That's awesome.
I look forward to getting it.
Yes.
All right.
I feel like that's kind of something that can't be understated enough. Is I feel like lyrically, all bets are off with this. Like, I know obviously it's following a concept, it's following a story that you kind of have to tell a narrative, but I feel like there's just a sense of like fun throughout the whole record. And I'm not saying Periphery isn't that. But I think Periphery is fun if you're a musician nerd and you're like, I mean, granted, I went and saw you on that tour with Dance Gavin Dance, and I saw a lot of arms folded dudes staring at the instrumentation of it and being like, yeah, I like that. That's about how they play that, and sounds like the record. But I feel like this, like I feel like could appeal to
me on discography.
Yeah, it's not angry metalhead dude who's like sitting there with his arms crossed, waiting like the impress me, bro.
This is not metal.
Yeah, I couldn't help but just feel like this is a fun record and something that. Like I said, it's not that Periphery isn't good, it's not fun, but I feel like this just tackles a completely different sonic territory than you have, even with Nick Mystery or with Periphery, and I feel like it showcases a more fun side of you and Matt even, and everybody really that's involved in this, that maybe is missing from progressive metal or progressive rock or whatever, where everything's so fucking serious, and I personally really dug that. Like, that was something upon the first listen to this record, I was like, this is fun. I like it. It's like more progressive metal Panic at the Disco at times. And I fucking dig that, where it's like it's got catchy hooks, it's got catchy choruses, but it's also got, riffs and shit. And I don't know, like, I'm just really interested for people to hear the whole thing and to see what people think of this. How do you think people are going to react to this record?
I don't know, man. I never really thought about that. It was just always kind of just like a true representation of my sound and like my creativity, the way I create music. And that's the thing I started to realize over there is it was like, wow, it's almost like it's like a very cathartic thing for me, just like getting out how I actually want to write and like having fun with it and viewing it like, like a play and also like, you talking about the playful aspect of the lyrics and stuff. I think taking 8 years on it really, it lent itself to that just naturally because, I wasn't in one period of time writing-wise for the whole record. It was like, okay, I'll work on these couple songs for a few months, take a year off, work on these songs for a few months, and I'm in a different headspace for different sections of the record, throughout the past 8 years.
Out of curiosity, did that actually lead to a little bit of... I don't want to say issues, but did that lead to some kind of conflict with creating continuity? With the fact that you're kind of pulling from the past, but you're trying to write in the present, and is it hard to kind of marry those ideas?
It was at first, man, and that's why I kind of nixed it for a long time, and just I grew out of the sound that I was in when I originally started this stuff for a couple years, and just was like, I'm never going to put it out, and then, came back to it. Like Tai is a big reason why I came back to it. I was like, I opened one of the old sessions that we did, that Matt recorded drums for, because I wanted to learn how to mix live drums. And it happened, just so happened that one of the songs in this record, Matt recorded drums for it before we decided to do this whole record or whatever. So I was like, I'm going to open that session. And Tai came over and heard me working on it. He's like, what's this? And I was like, it's just this old, like, shitty rock opera thing that, like, I had from back in the day. It's like a test mix type of thing. He's like, this is sick, dude. Like, what else do you have for that? And I was like, yeah, let's check it out. So I, like, opened all the old sessions. They sounded horrible, but it was like the ideas were there.
Yeah.
And,
it was like a blank. It was like a book with like an idea written on every page, where it's just like you need to flesh the story out. It was there though.
Yeah,
like, and the bones were there, and they were good.
And the recording sounded fucking terrible. Man. It was horrible.
I love that too. What do you got going on over here? Oh, nothing. I just like may or may not have created like my own like universe over here. It's no big deal, man. It lives on this hard drive and in this notebook, but like it's not a big deal. Like, don't even worry about it.
Do you guys like Big Dumb Face? I kind of wrote a record like that.
It's just dog shit on a hard drive.
Yeah. That's how I felt about it at the time, honestly. Yeah.
Well, like, speaking to the lyrics, too, like, this is weird to me, and, like, it's weird in a good way. If it was weird in a bad way, I wouldn't tell you, but, like, it's one of those, like, it's funny how, like, upfront and honest the lyric, like, this is one of the first, like, story albums I've listened to that, like, I could actually pick up what was going on in the story, because the lyrics were so much more straightforward. Like, this isn't like a Coheed and Cambria situation where, like, you have to be subscribed to, like, 12 months of a comic book and then read, and then...
That's coming, Dan, that's coming. That is coming.
Yeah, okay, all right, it can come, but, like, I'm just saying, you don't need it.
Yeah,
that's on their OnlyFans. The OnlyFans is where you're going to get the comic.
Dude, check out my OnlyFans. I stream video games in my underpants. It's fine.
Slick balls and sick records.
It's all we do in our OnlyFans is we just put on one of our songs, and that's the whole video.
There you go. For extra money, you can actually see the urine-soaked pants from...
Yeah, I have piss pants. He's got shit in his ass. Yeah.
That's at least on the $200 mark. Yeah.
Oh. Nobody can afford that stuff.
Sorry, I didn't even ask a question, but I just felt like I had to say that. Like, it's really refreshing, though, to hear, like, straightforward lyrics. So I'm going to ask the question that I ask everybody and be like, was it intentional to be more straightforward, or was it just like, this is me, I don't want to, like, beat around the bush or whatever? Like, I've got kind of this, I don't want to really say message, but I've got this idea that I want to present to you, so I'm going to present it as clear as possible. Was it, like, an attempt to be more poetic, or was it more of, like, this is what's going on?
I think for me, like, I don't know, listening to some concept records, sometimes it's like, man, you have a hard time grasping what's going on. And I was like, that would be so cool, like, to do a record like that, to where in this, short universe of this, 3, 5, 6 minute song or whatever, like, get as much of that story painted in somebody's mind up front with the lyrics, so they don't have to dig so hard. Maybe there is more going on, but there's a very clear picture of what's going on fit into that, short, like I said, that short time span of that song.
Yeah, totally. And it's refreshing, too, because in this day and age, what are we all listening to this record on? We're listening to it on our phones.
I recently started using Tidal.
How is that? Like, I used it just because, like, I'm a big hip-hop fan, so, like, when...
Dude, it's the shit. You can listen to I mean, it's a little more expensive. Like, I think the high-quality version is what I use, and it's $12.99 a month. It's like the highest quality streaming. Like, we did tests on studio monitors, like, between all the streaming services, like the main ones, Spotify, Apple Music, and then Tidal. And it's like you're listening to a completely different song, dude, when you play the same song on each streaming service. Yeah. Dude, it's insane. You can actually pay, I think it's like $15.99 a month if you want, like, the FLAC audio version. And it's nuts. It's like you're listening to a master out of, like, a Pro Tools session.
Well, what's funny is, like, the reason that Tidal got me, being a big Kanye fan, whether you agree with me or not, but
you're wrong, John.
I love Kanye.
I will tell you that you are wrong, Dan. Kanye is great, and I'm going to tattoo him on my leg forever.
It's weird, because I thought I was the Christian music guy. Now you're all about Jesus and Jesus. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of my favorite concerts I've ever been to, and I've seen a shitload of shows. All that aside, though, the thing that got me about Tidal and what was interesting, and I'm kind of interested to see how this changes, because I've heard that I think it's Ticketmaster is going to change this as far as how they progress with music and so forth. So, like, Tidal would do... You get pre-sale codes for concerts, and that's why I signed up initially, so I could get like pre-sale for Kanye to go see him when he was here in town. And I've heard that like Ticketmaster, because of I don't know necessarily if it has a term, but basically like you would like an artist would put out a record, and then you could buy a ticket to the show or the subsequent tour, and you would get the quote-unquote album for free. And what that did was it basically boosted the album sales. And I've heard that in the last 5 to 6 months, they're going away from that because it's technically, I don't want to say legal, but it's the industry has kind of basically caught up and been like, that's cheating the number.
Like falsifying your numbers on
It's
Nielsen.
stupid. Like, who cares about numbers? Nobody gives a shit about first week numbers, aside from like industry people, like fans, like people always fans' faces and shit, dude. They don't give a fuck about that, man.
Can I ask a question? Like I've asked this a couple of times, and I've gotten varying.
Trapped, by the way.
Yeah. He said it only matters when it's trapped, by the way.
Yeah. So I've asked this question a handful of times during these COVID times, but you know, as someone who has kind of got a lot of friends in the industry and people who talk about first week numbers and kind of like what you're projecting and, you know, different ways to market and boost your numbers, like something in the early 2000s that we saw a lot of was here's the album and then like the DVD, and technically that would count toward 2 album sales for every unit because you had 2 discs in the package, and it was a way to inflate your numbers. And so what's interesting is I'm wondering if in light of all this COVID shit, if we're going to see the industry shift away from first week numbers because they realize in light of this, where you can't tour, it doesn't fucking matter what your first week numbers are. It matters what the record does over the course of a year, 2 years. Like if it's still doing well and it's still pushing units, isn't that the important thing? Like, are we going to get away from this antiquated model because of COVID?
Albums that'll stand the test of time. That's what's going to matter. I mean, like, what is it? The fucking Black Album still sells like 5.
Oh my god, absolutely.
It's like, dude, talk about that instead of, you know, you sold this many first week. Like, that's not going to matter in 2 months from now.
I felt like that first week stuff for so many years, at least the amount of time that I've been in the industry, has only really been a metric to show how big a band's like rise has been, or how big a band thinks they are in comparison to the bands that they are in competition with, quote unquote. So, like on the rise as far as like if they're marketing, I'm not going down that. If there's just like if it's just a marketing scheme or something, you know, if their marketing did well, it's an immediate response to whether or not their promotion was in the right place, if their money on marketing was spent right. You know, I don't think the metric matters any more than a brag right.
I don't think so either. I think that's all it is.
I think that's all it is it's a dick swing. And
I mean, pre-COVID, though, I think it was basically just a metric that you used to decide which band was going to headline a tour and like what bands they were going to bring out.
Absolutely,
exactly. Yeah. And it was kind of like a way to strong arm people into certain guarantees. It was a way to strong people into certain slots on package tours, Warped Tour,
festivals,
festival stuff. Like there was some ridiculous thing. It was like one of the I don't remember which Bring Me the Horizon record was. It was just a crazy huge sale. Then 3 years later they'd do another one, and it was like half their sales first week, and they were twice as big of a band.
Yeah,
and probably Sempiternal into That's the Spirit.
I think it was, and it was. They're twice the size of the band on that.
Probably even bigger, and probably, dude, yeah,
huge.
They're so much bigger now.
Like, so they're like I would say like the biggest rock band,
and people are still
that's not mainstream in the world.
People were still using that metric to try to, they've lost fans. Oh, they're not as big anymore. It's like, what do you mean? They get $1 million a show.
Yeah, they're huge.
Nobody buys hard copy. Why are we stuck on that?
Actually, I guess that's a good question. And is that something you guys? Because like I can't speak for Dan, but I think we both would agree that it's kind of interesting sometimes in doing these chats. You kind of get a little behind the scenes information about how the industry is working. When you see something like Bring Me, who are kind of shucking the traditional release schedule where they're like, fuck it, we're putting out singles, we're putting out EPs, like the album is dead, like we're kind of going more hip hop kind of based, like mixtape style shit. When that kind of stuff is happening and it's hitting, and you're seeing a bigger reaction in the live sense. Granted, I know COVID's throwing this all out of whack, but are you getting feedback from labels where they're like, "Hey, you guys need to maybe be doing this"? Like, is that happening? Are they like trying to make you?
It's not happening to us per se, because we are the label,
right?
And we realize that kind of thing works very well for a band like Bring Me, or their other peers that are based, have a different kind of fan base. Like, we're a prog metal band, so I don't think that Periphery putting out a single or without having like a record to back it up, like Periphery fans want records, like that's the thing with kind of like prog bands and like these underground type bands. But for a band like Bring Me, I think that's genius. I think what they're doing, they're like front runners, showing people on that side of the industry. They're like giving them the blueprint, like how to do it. As far as I'm concerned, I think they're doing it better than anybody else in the rock game right now.
Doing small content, releasing them in intervals that are, or just cold dropping stuff. Just cold dropping a single.
I love that, dude. I love that.
You pop on YouTube one day, it's like, oh my god, new music, and it's like a great surprise instead of 2-week run up to a song that maybe lets you down.
Yeah, it's very anticlimactic. I don't know, when I see stuff like that and people just promoting things before they're out too much, it's like try hardy to me. I don't know. And that's just me. I mean, it may not be the way everyone perceives it, but I like when things are just cold dropping. I think it's the coolest fucking thing.
Yeah, like Hum did with their newest record. Like it just came out, and it was like, sweet, I got a new Hum record. I've been waiting, a million years, but like it was fine. And yeah, like I agree with you 100%, because nothing frustrates me more, like as a podcast host. Like I get so many emails every day from people that like, hey, my band just put out their first single, do you want to do an interview? And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure your band is great, like, and I'm sure it's, like for real, like I could be passing up on stuff that is like incredible, but like if it's one song, but it's kind of like you have that friend, right, that's writing a book. We all have that friend that's writing a book, and like the frustrating thing about that is that like they've written the prologue to their book, and they want everybody to pre-order the book, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, let me know when the book's finished and you're sending it to people to proofread before you tell me that you have a book written.
I think that's a huge problem we have in the music industry. Everybody, with social media, I think is caused as the main culprit, is nobody wants to do the groundwork. Everybody wants the career and for everything to be laid out for them and everything to be handed to them right when they start. It's like, no, dude, like you got to pay some fucking dues and like eat some shit for years before people even start giving two fucks about anything you're doing.
Right. It doesn't matter if you're a great band. Like if you're a great, like if you've got musical talent that nobody else has, but it's just one of those like, yeah, but you need people to actually hear it and be able to build up some sort of organic following.
I think you could almost take it a step further and be like, you see, like, this is something I talked about, I don't remember who I was talking about it with, but I feel like this is something you see now in the local scenes. Like, you see people who are, it was, who was it? We just dropped the episode, like, very recently. Anyway.
Wow, John, you're just big timing people already.
It was Michael from Volumes. That's who it was. It was Michael from Volumes. And we were talking about the fact that I was like, do you see people coming to you and asking you, how do I get where you are? And basically what that means is, how do I bypass all the bullshit of having to earn my way and all the bullshit that informs you of how to be a successful band because of what you've gone through, and how to be a tighter unit because of all the shit you've gone through as a unit?
Dude, it's only... it's like those people don't understand it's only time. And like the people who are willing to wait it out longer, who have talent, are the ones that are going to come out on top. It's a lot of these bands make it that have amazing talent that will never be heard. They just didn't have the staying power, and they just couldn't eat shit for all those years.
They can't get out of their own way, and they think they're entitled to it. It's like there's no get rich quick scheme in the music industry or in the financial industry or in any other fucking industry, to be honest with you. It's all about the groundwork, and and actually doing it. What I can say is the positive turn that I've seen during COVID is a lot of people are trying to get really creative with the content they're putting out, and there's such a shit of it now. I feel like it's almost getting to the point where it's a little oversaturated, so people have to maybe be a little bit smarter about what they put out and how they put it out, and when they put it out, and maybe keep an eye on who else is putting stuff out and when they're doing it, so they don't get lost in the mix. I think that's kind of something that King Mothership right now is especially focused on. Not putting out too much, not putting out too little, putting out just enough to where we're not shoving it down people's throats,
Because I hate when people do that.
Yeah.
For me, I don't like to see that to other people.
And it's not even easy for us. Like, for me personally, I'm pretty eager. I want all this stuff. I want people to hear this stuff, but at the same time, if it's just too much, people are going to get annoyed. If it's not enough, nobody's going to know. So that's one good takeaway people could maybe, have is right now during all this shit, make your content, but be smart about how you put it out.
Exactly.
So that's something we've actually focused on the podcast quite a bit about is it seems like nowadays everyone's basically giving away a whole record for free before it even comes out. You're getting 5, 6, 7 songs out of a 12-song record. And I remember, I think collectively we're all roughly the same age. We've kind of joked about, remembering when we were young. But I remember, even as early as when Diamond Eyes came out by Deftones, Rocket Skates was the fucking lead-off single. It was the promotional single, and then I think you got Diamond Eyes. Yeah. And so it's you had 1-2 singles, and you were if you like those singles, I'm pre-ordering the record. I'm hoping that's enough to get me interested in the record a month and a half, 2 months before it comes out, and maybe even potentially to buy a ticket to see the band before I hear the record. But I feel like now bands and labels are just giving away so much of the content just to keep a band in front of the quote-unquote fans or whatever. I don't know. So it's been interesting that in all of this, you guys have only released, and correct me if I'm wrong, 1 single, and it seems like you're kind of going off of the old business model where it's I hope this is enough to get people interested in pre-ordering the record and following us on the socials and all that kind of stuff.
We have some other stuff planned leading up, but we're hardly giving any, a fraction of the whole record away.
I mean, we're still months out, too, as of when we're recording this, so...
What do we have next as far as... Can we tell them?
There's one song coming out on the 11th.
We have Matt's playthroughs, which are coming out next. So we did the single, then we did my playthrough, then we did the Q&A video.
Yeah, Matt's got a drum playthrough for Cosmic, Meltdown, and the next single that comes out.
Yep.
And then after that, we've got a surprise. A week before the record drops, the last song on the record will come out. That's I don't know what.
The one with Bellini?
Eight minutes.
Plini's agreed to do a solo playthrough for it. So when that song drops,
oh shit,
out a video of him doing the solo playthrough with it.
How do you feel about the record? Obviously with it taking so long to kind of get a final product out, and how are you feeling currently about putting this record out, and what what is the song that you're most excited for people to hear off this record?
Oh shit.
I have mine.
Probably the song "Only You," just because that was a very last minute song that came together on the record, just to tie parts of the story together. And it was a lot of people don't know this, but there was the record was done 6 months ago, mixed, mastered,
and ready to go a lot sooner than this.
And with COVID happening and all this, Wayne was like, oh, we're gonna push this back. We have other things planned for Periphery and stuff during this whole time. And I was like, well, if that's the case, I'm going to remix the record because I just didn't like the job that I did mixing it. I felt like it was kind of rushed, and I didn't know as much back then as I know now about mixing in the studio and everything. So
Can I cut you off for just a second? Because I don't have any of this information. You mix and mastered this?
I mixed it, and Taylor Larson mastered it.
Okay. I don't have any of that information, so that's news to me personally.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right on. Well, and there were bits even Hope, the intro track didn't have vocals on it originally, and then on this round of mixing the record, me and Ty were like, oh, let's just add a bunch of shit in and make it feel like more of a finished record.
We added transitions in and out of every song where it didn't used to be like that.
So the song "Only You" was actually Matt's drums from the song before that, which is Gold. It's a drum group. That song that I took and chopped and changed the tempo on them and kind of stretched things out to make them feel like a totally different song.
Yeah.
And we added that in as just another piece of the story. So that's probably my favorite because it's the newest, out of a record that's taken 8 years to do. There's definitely parts of the record that I've gotten sick of hearing, and I'm definitely not sick of hearing that song yet.
I'm curious to know if they caught the Easter egg at the end of
On I Stand Alone?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at the very, very end.
Are you talking about the melody at the end that is similar to the one that starts Hope?
No. Like right when the music stops at the end, there's a little Easter egg thrown in there. It's like me saying something like in an affected voice.
Oh, I missed that because when the music stopped, I just turned it off and started over again.
Get it?
And I've kind of said this about a couple of other records recently, where I feel like I Stand Alone and the ending of the record actually transitions pretty well into the beginning. And like I said, and I was gonna say, like I was saying earlier, like where I feel like this is kind of a play. I feel like this is really structured in a 3-act structure. Like by the time you get to, I think it might be Ego 101, but it could have been The Ritual. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't get to see the song titles when I'm listening to this, but I know like one of those two songs, I was like, this feels like the third act. This feels like the third act. Like if you were to go see a play, this would be the beginning of the third act. It kind of is bringing you back into the narrative of the story and bringing it home. And it's really interesting to kind of hear a record, really, I should say, that feels so visual, even though as of now, there's no visual accompaniments to this in the broad spectrum of how I feel like this record actually should be presented.
Yeah, all we have to go off right now is just the album cover. And the artist did a great job. So the idea behind that, if you didn't know, was every square.
It feels very Midsummer-esque, if I can say that.
Oh, it was hugely inspired by the art of Midsummer.
Yes. The quilt.
To tell I wanted everybody to be able to look at that cover, and before they even hear the record, know what it's about. They're seeing the entire story of the whole record right there on one piece of art.
Yeah, that's really cool. That helped me actually follow along a little bit better.
You had the pubic hair pie.
Shit. Well, that's like the piece on there where like the guy's got the swirlies in his eyes. That was definitely taken from the influence from that like kind of part of the movie. Mm-hmm. I think that was it like showed the girl like with the pubic hair in the drink or whatever, and then the guy's got swirly eyes after it.
Yep, absolutely.
That's awesome. Like to tie this interview, I guess, up in a little bit of a bow. This is my cheese part of the interview where I say that like, absolutely, let's go. But like, this was one of the most creative records I've heard this year. In the sense that, like, I've heard a lot of records, obviously, that came out this year, but this was probably the one that I was the most intrigued by. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, good job, guys. You made me think, and I haven't digested it all 100%, and I'm going to totally take advantage of my podcasterness and be able to listen to it before anybody else hears it, so that whenever people make comments on it on Facebook or on YouTube or on whatever social media platform they choose to voice their opinion, I get to be the guy that like adjusts my glasses a little bit and is like, well, guys, actually, it's about this. And if you listen to the subtleties, like and the nuance, can't forget the nuance. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's cool, and I think that the record is going to do well. And I think that even fans of heavy music, because like I'm more of a meathead. I spend most of my time listening to like grindcore and death metal and like all that kind of stuff. And but I found a lot to like in this record. And I think that it was a really good flex of the creative muscle, and I think this record is gonna do well for you guys, and I appreciate you guys talking to us tonight and kind of getting into a little bit of the questions that we had and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that was a blast, man. These were you guys had great questions. Yeah. Like when we do interviews and stuff like that, especially like that we get in Periphery, there's always so much of the same questions, and you guys did a great job of making it fun and just feeling like it's a conversation rather than like an interview or something like that.
Yeah, dude, conversations are way more interesting because like I know whenever I listen to interviews with like my favorite bands and stuff, there's always kind of a certain like you can tell when they're on a press cycle. Or whenever, they're supposed to say a certain thing. So, like, you can listen to, like, 5 podcast interviews with a band, and they're going to always give the exact same canned answers. And it's, like, really, 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 really stupid, like, for the interviewers to not even, like, listen to the other podcasts that are doing those interviews. So, like, you end up with, like, so how did you guys come up with the name King Mothership? And, like, stuff that, like, doesn't ultimately matter. Like, what matters is that people like you guys, and whenever they hear the joking, more jovial manner in which you guys, in the way that you guys approach things, it makes it more real. It makes it more fun, and it makes it something more relatable. So it's not even...
I think that's why Joe Rogan has like one of the most successful podcasts. You know,
It's just conversation.
it's just conversations, man. Like
Yeah.
it's just what people want to hear. It's the human experience, you know.
Right, because I can hear you on the record. You know, I don't need somebody to sit down and explain to me what the record is, because the record is there and everybody can listen to it, right? But like a more casual conversation, it's more important for us to get people to be fans of you as a person. And in that regard, they're not going to be like somebody that's like, well, this isn't heavy, and I like Periphery, but I don't know if I like this other thing. Whereas if they hear you talk about it on a podcast and, you know, and give your true thoughts and your truth feelings on things, people are more apt to actually check that out because they're a fan of you and not just a fan of, like, what the product is.
Totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my favorite things about, speaking to that people have commented on the YouTube version since we filmed you, Spencer, talking back to me with my questions, is everyone being like, Mark really liked his Chinese food. Because he was eating Chinese food in the background. I'm like, I have so many comments on that interview, and I was like, did you not even listen to what we were talking about? You're
Jesus, you eat Chinese food one time, and yeah.
But it's so funny. Everyone's like, I wish I loved anything the way like Mark loves Chinese food, like he is in the background. I was like, thanks for checking out my YouTube video of Mark eating Chinese food, you assholes.
That's fun. Yeah, Mark is very passionate about food, and he loves Asian food too, obviously.
Yeah.
And I can only speak for our Instagram. Like when people leave comments, and like there have been times where people leave comments, and I'm like, obviously you think the person I interviewed is going to see this, and they're not, because they don't give a shit. This is one of like 700 interviews they're doing. But what's funny is when people leave those comments, I just want to be an asshole and be like, if you think this person's going to see this comment, they're absolutely not. Like, not on YouTube. Like, no.
My favorite comment of all time is the everybody's talking about the interview, and then somebody's like, I made $6,000 a month last night by working from home. And I'm like, yes, I'm important enough to get spam bots to comment on my content.
And then Spencer's like, you know what? We don't make enough money in Periphery to make a living.
Wow, John. Wow.
That's because that happened. It happened, Dan. It made national.
I know.
It made national music news. I don't remember which member of Periphery said it.
I was there.
It was like, we don't make enough money. The music industry doesn't pay us enough money just to release music to make a living. And that made headlines. And people were like, oh, well, it's because like they got fucked on publishing or whatever. And I'm like, apparently everyone knows everything about the music industry. And like, why the fuck do you even listen to anything?
Just go to their site and go to their site and buy their stuff. That's literally the message here.
Well, you know what's funny is like we've talked about that, but we've never said, hey, we don't make any money. Like, hey, we make money as a band. Like, we paid our dues. You know, like we're not fucking like poor out here or anything.
No. You're poor. You're broke. That was what the internet told me.
And the internet's always right, no matter what the nuance is, no matter what the subtext is.
You're using box dye, right? You're using box dye for your hair. You can't even afford to go to a salon, right, Spencer? That's
like Sally's Beauty Supply, like shitty semi-permanent stuff.
You're using like Manic Panic. Tell everyone you're using Manic Panic, and we'll all be good.
That's what it is. It's Manic Panic, dude. Because I can't commit, man. I don't know if I want my hair to be red for 3 months. You know.
And that's why you're single.
Man, clickbaity. Wow. But in all seriousness, thank you guys so much for doing this chat. I know it was like all over the place, but I like to have fun, and I'm glad that you guys like to have fun as well.
Where can everyone find you and or the band online so they can follow all of your polyrhythmic updates?
Instagram, Twitter. I think the band has Facebook. I'm not sure.
We do now. All the usual places at King Mothership. That leads you to all of our personals.
Yeah, if you want to pre-order whatever,
there's a pre-order link.
3.recordings.com, I think is what it is. And
the King Mothership Instagram bio has the link for pre-order as well. Yeah, if anybody wants.
So where do I pre-order the coffee table that's also a vinyl player?
Yeah, well, you know it's coming, baby.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's OnlyFans, Dan. We already established that.
I got my $3 like right here. Like let's do it.
I do have a question. I don't know if I'll keep this in or not. because we didn't touch on this, what will the live setting of this look like if you guys choose to do this in a live setting? Because, like, I think on record, as far as the liner notes, it's 3 or 4 of you, and I feel like there's so much more than 3 or 4 of you's worth of material being presented. Have you started to think about what the live looks like?
We'd have like a grand piano on stage and like a sick pianist, because that's like the whole part of the record. But I think I'd rather spend the money on fire breathers and fucking.
If there's not clowns juggling chainsaws,
Not clowns juggling chainsaws. I don't want to be there.
yeah, absolutely. Like, it's ridiculous. There's no point.
Theatrical as
Make it as
possible.
theatrical as possible,
Yeah.
but also, keep it as true to the music
True
as
to the
possible
music.
too. But like, we're a long way from that down the road.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we do end up playing live, it's gonna be something special.
Yeah.
Like it's not just gonna be something that's thrown together.
Forgive me for asking a really ignorant question. Spencer, if you play something live, are you going to play an instrument live? Can
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I'll probably.
Wow,
play
dude.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll probably play guitar live.
Yeah. There'll be some.
Hey,
reason there.
hey, fuck you, Dan.
Hey, man. Wow. I just can't even
I
like.
can't play. I'm obviously not a musician. I'm a singer. So.
I mean, that's why you have so many people in Periphery playing guitar, right? 'Cause
Dude.
you can't play anything.
Same.
Yeah, doesn't have 19 fingers.
I'm all serious. A lot of people don't know this. I've been playing guitar since I was like 11 years old. I've been playing guitar way longer than I've been singing. So,
Dude, that's actually something we have learned so much. Like, most of the people who are like, oh, I didn't know X, Y, or Z could play an instrument. And then they're like, so I'm playing guitar or I'm playing bass on this, and I'm going to like branch out and kind of do both on this record live. Like, talking to Clint Lowry, like, everyone knows Clint's got fucking riffs and he can sing.
Yeah.
But it's so weird that, like, when I talk to him about his solo record, he's like, yeah, I figure people probably don't know I'm going to sing and do, play live. They just think I'm going to be a frontman or whatever. I was like, I would assume you're going to play both. And he's like, yeah, but, like, people don't assume that. And I was like, why? Because, like, you can.
I think some do, and maybe some that really know.
I would really assume that.
Yeah, for Clint, for sure.
Yeah.
I have one last question. We'll let you go.
Sure.
Damn it, John.
This is going to be a fun question. And this is both of you.
I already told him thank you for doing the interview. Come on.
Yeah, and I'll edit it to
All right.
not be where it needs to be.
All right.
What would a King Mothership drink be? Would it be a beer? It could be a beer, a liquor, a cocktail. What would a King Mothership be if you could make it a drink?
Anything but a seltzer. I'll tell you that much.
It would be a seltzer.
Anything but a seltzer. I mean, probably an IPA.
I think it'd be like a
I think it'd be like an IPA
or like a
stout
sour or something.
Or sour, yeah,
like
something like
Ooh,
with
a
some
sour would be really interesting. I think a sour would work for you guys.
Ego 101
Ego
sour.
101 sour,
Like
babe. Or the Cosmic Meltdown is a great beer name.
that's true.
Ooh, that would be a good sour name. Hold on. Where are you quote unquote technically based out of?
We're in Vegas.
Yeah, we're in Vegas, and Matt's in
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
I don't know any breweries in Vegas. I don't think there are any.
We actually have a bunch,
There are some good ones.
and
there,
I have
yeah.
some pretty good ins there. We could maybe make this happen. That'd be yeah.
You have to make a beer for this record. You have to.
Yeah.
Like, you have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Make a beer for this record.
Okay, so the coffee table opens up with the record on the turntable with a beer
Yeah, man.
It's gonna have
on
a
the side of it.
All right, boys. I'm taking off. It's good to talk.
Absolutely.
Same.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to everyone hearing the record finally, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Guys,
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.
You
too.
So that was our conversation with Spencer and Tai of King Mothership. Again, Dan was a part of that. It was a lot of fun having all 4 of us involved in that. Dan,
I was there, yeah, with a different microphone, a different camera. Yeah.
lots of beers and good conversation. I will say, it was less nerve-wracking talking to Spencer for this than it was talking to Spencer in the midst of a Periphery tour talking about P4.
Yeah, that was pretty rough for you. I remember you were like freaking out because you're like, I'm gonna screw something up or I'm gonna get some factoid wrong, and then the internet at large is going to murder me.
Well, I think that's the thing that like people just don't quite understand about sometimes doing these podcasts is like the responsibility that we have as the people interviewing some of these people that are larger than life for some of their fans. I mean, like, we kind of hit on this, and as of the time of when we're putting this out, which will be in about an hour, roughly, or so from now, because I'm going to drop this literally as soon as I'm done recording this and editing it, but, when talking with Michael from Dark Tranquillity, that's a band that's been around for 30 years.
Yeah.
What they mean to their fans is almost on par with what Periphery means to the metal and gent scene as a whole. And so getting to talk to Spencer about something that's not Periphery and doesn't have the lineage of what Periphery means to their fans was kind of nice. It's kind of a burden taken off of you, because there's not a whole lot, as of when we did this conversation, there's not a whole lot known about King Mothership. There's not a whole lot, the expectations of everything. It's not coming from bulb demos, that people have been hearing for 10 years or whatever. So the expectations are pretty low. So the stress is off you and I, as far as having to touch on all these things that people are expecting us to talk about when you're talking to someone of the magnitude of Spencer or Tai, with what they're doing. And to me, that's such a weight off of us, to where we can have more fun with this. I had fun talking to Spencer previously, but I had more fun doing this because there wasn't the expectation of, there's the excited fandom that knows so much about this project that I have to try to hopefully touch on throughout the time that we have, in addition to asking questions that no one has ever heard over the band's career. And we don't have any of that. And so to me, like I said, the expectation and the burden is just lifted. So all that matters at that point is just having a fun, interesting conversation with the guys. And I think we achieved that in spades, personally.
Definitely. And if not, you can always leave us a comment like, was a total mess, or, or whatever it is you want to do, or, tell us something random about Killswitch, because that seems to be usually people's go-to with our stuff. So
yeah, it's definitely a thing where I'm glad we had uninterrupted time with Spencer and Tai. I would actually, now that the record's out and now that people have heard it as of now for about 2 weeks almost, as of when we're going to drop this, I would almost like to have them back on and kind of maybe do a track-by-track commentary or something, because I think that'd be fun, especially given the fact that there is a theme and a narrative running throughout the whole record that we kind of slightly touched on, but really didn't get into a whole lot, because like I said, when we recorded this, we were about a month and a half away from this even coming out, and there was only one single for everyone to hear, so we didn't want to get too involved in the minutia of the record.
Yeah, well, I'll go buy the beer now. Might as well get ready.
I would actually like a King Mothership beer. The way that they kind of described the beer that they were thinking of, if it were to be a beer, would be really good. So I would definitely like one of the King Mothership beers they talked about. Kind of wrapping this up, because this episode was a little over an hour long. If you would like to keep up with the King Mothership dudes, it's very simple. You can go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, King Mothership. If you would like to order the record or do anything with the record, 3.recordings.com. That is where you can find everything. If you would like to keep up with Spencer, you can find him at Spencer Sotelo on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter. And Tai, you can find on Instagram at Tai Wright, WRIGHT, and Twitter. And if you listen to the interview, this is funny, you can find him at Tai Talks Shit. Tai, T-A-I, Talks, T-A-L-K-S, Shit. As you kind of heard in the interview there, people go onto his thing and like to basically comment like it's not Ty's thing. So Tai equals me. If you would like to order the record, 3.recordings.com. And I'm sure any of those links that we've sent you to or are recommending right now, you will find them. This is a great record, and I'm hoping to see more done with it on all spectrums, in all mediums that they can. But just in the audio version, it's a fucking great record, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. As you heard, there's at least 3 songs that they're working on currently, so hopefully we'll get some more King Mothership sooner than later. And speaking of sooner than later, Dan will tell you where he can be found on the internet.
I can be found on Twitter at Discuss Metal Dan. You can find me on Facebook, floating around as Daniel Terry. It was a hard name for me to come up with, but I came up with it in a very genius fashion, I think. I just used my name. It's very trend-setting. It's very new. You can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com. And my OnlyFans is currently being built, so if you want to see me piss into a bucket, give me money, and I will do that.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, you can simply find us at brewspeakpod.com. That will have any way you need to connect with the podcast possible, but for some reason, if you haven't looked in the show notes, you haven't gone to brewspeakpod.com, make it simple enough. Brewspeakpod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's a theme. Check it out. Also want to shout out Pod Bunny Graphics for making all of our graphics for our social media things. Samantha has been doing a great job creating awesome branded content for us, so want to shout her out. And speaking of shouting out people who support us, sponsors, go to onpointpomade.com. Keep your beard and hair looking on point. I am currently in the process of getting Maddie to do something with us in the next couple of weeks as of when we're recording. Maybe one of our Facebook, YouTube live series that we do on Wednesdays typically. Dude's super nice. He's creating so much stuff, working on the new Memphis Mayfire record, so looking forward to chatting with him, having Dan involved if possible. But On Point Pomade, use our code BSP15, keep your hair and beard looking on point. Holiday season's right around the corner, so you definitely want to make sure your shit's looking good for those photos that you're inevitably going to take. Beanbastardcoffee.com. Get some delicious coffee. They have a brick and mortar. We actually just shared today as we're recording their news feature in the Buffalo Rising newspaper. It's great to see Maruso and everyone over at the Bean Bastard doing so well, going from just a very small DIY coffee making business to now a brick and mortar. You can literally go into their store if you live in the Buffalo, New York area. And to me, that is fucking awesome because, I mean, honestly, it's what we do here. We started a thing, it's growing to what it is, and it's by the support of the people who are loyal and dedicated to what we do and helping us grow, and that is exactly what's happening with the Bean Bastard. So congrats to those dudes. Can't wait to get down to Buffalo and go try some delicious coffee straight from the source. So support a local independent company, especially during these tough times. And lastly but not leastly, rockabilia.com. They have over 500,000 items in their online store. Just about any other band that you can think of that we have had on the show, they're fucking have merch from them. Lamb of God candles, Testament gloves, House
Kill Switch stuff,
House the Show, t-shirts and posters and so forth. Just so much, a plethora of things. And definitely a site that if you like this show, there's got to be something you like. So head on over there, use our code BREW15, save 15% off your total purchase order. Want to support our sponsors for supporting us during all of these times and supporting you and making sure that you guys are taken care of as well. And for the Brewtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And we will talk to you on Wednesday with Joe from Lightworker.
Joe and Grayson from Lightworker.
All right, so we're doing a double dip on the Lightworker guys.
Absolutely.
It's no light work.
It is not.
And we'll see you then.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, what'd you think? Okay. Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were going to get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you. Don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.